Gabylon is a system of science which is a circle and it's divided into 12 sectors. How do we know which element comes first, or which is the most important element which starts this cycle in nature? In order to understand this, one must also realise what the first Greek philosopher said, Thales. He said that water was the most important element and that all other elements came from water. From water comes sand, from sand comes land, from land comes a forest, and from a forest comes bog, and so on and so forth as we complete our cycle around the circle and the 12 forces in nature.
Welcome to Gabylon. What is Gabylon? Gabylon is a new system of science and chemistry. We are looking at the same scientific principles but from a different perspective. At university, I found that environments, biomes and earth systems in nature were taught with great detail and depth. However, I found that there was no basic pattern or systematic way which linked all these groups together, and this I found very disappointing. In all, I thought science was too complicated. It didn't have to be like that. I also thought because of this, some kind of major foundation was missing in our understanding of it. Gabylon attempts to link all these relationships in a more systematic and simple way.
A supportive clockwise relationship tells us that each environment or system will support the next one in a circular type of fashion. As each environment or system changes from one to the next in a gradual type of way, so does each colour slowly change from one to the next, also in a gradual type of way.
However, you will have to read my book later in order to fully understand all 12 forces. This cycle will continue on and on until we reach a full force of 12.
Even if you didn't want to believe it, it is a good way of remembering Earth systems in nature.
Gabylon, you're going to learn about how some environments are triangular and not circular, and this is because these environments or systems are more dynamic.
In Gabylon, change or travel biomes support the formation of growth biomes, and growth biomes support the formation of storage biomes, and this cycle will continue on and on around the circle. Now I'm just going to challenge you a bit, because the next part is the periodic circle, not the periodic table. And those people who are very technical and mathematical aren't going to like this necessarily, because you're using the other side of your brain.
As the cycle was clockwise within nature, I decided to apply the atomic numbers of each element on the periodic table in a similar fashion.
Gabylon is also a circular periodic table. All we have to do is use the atomic numbers and circle them around over and over again. By doing this, you'll find that all the alkaline earth metals, noble gases, halogens, and the alkali metals are divided into certain groups. Let's explore these relationships now to see for yourself that this is a true system.
Silica 14 is located on the beach 2 sector and is an element which helps to create sand. In fact, sand is made from silica. Carbon 6 belongs to the yellow desert sectors, and carbon 6 helps to create the formula carbonates. The best preserved carbonates are actually found in the desert. And that's interesting because Gabylon is telling us that this formula is found within the hot desert environment. And we know this because oxygen 8 is actually located nearby in the orange segment. Oxygen 8 helps to create the carbonate formula too. Hydrogen 1 creates water and belongs to the water segment. Neon 10 creates red lights in shop fronts, which you see at night time, and this is interesting because this element neon is actually located within the red mountain sectors. Sodium 11 belongs to the cave cliff sector, and it's through the erosion of cliffs and caves which is how oceans obtain this salt. And this is interesting because the ocean segment sits right next to it. Sulfur 16 is found in the forest segment and enhances the growth of plants. Titanium 22 belongs to the red volcano sector and is an element used as an implant within the human skeletal frame. And that's interesting too because this sector is about the hardest substance in nature, and that is rock. Potassium 19 is very drying and belongs to the yellow sector or desert sector. Magnesium 12 is located within the blue sector at the top of the ocean sector. But that's literally where the majority of magnesium can be found on planet Earth, and that's within the ocean. And that's a fact.
Just want to add for general interest that blue steel and the elements used to create it, which is chromium 24 and tungsten 74, are located within the water fan. And also gold 79, just out of coincidence, happens to appear within the yellow sector.
Indidium 49 and tantalum 73 are both elements used in water splitting, and isn't that interesting because both of them belong to the water sector.
Cerium 58 is known to enhance the strength of reabsorbable implants within the human body, and I found it interesting that it belonged to the same sector as titanium 22, which is one of the rare metals accepted by the human body as well and is used as a bone implant. Zinc and cerium is mentioned by Manisha Behera in a research that was published in 2021. Both of these compounds belong to the same trilogy, the Mountain Trilogy, which often in my research revealed compounds which were strong or had some type of strength to it. The tip of the triangle I also found pointed to elements which resonated with life more, or the living world more.
If you didn't want to believe in all this, then how could all these relationships just be a mere coincidence?
Thorium-90 is well known by scientists to heat up the mantle, and it just so happens to be located in the same sector that symbolically represents the mantle when you think about the 12 forces in nature and what stage that you're up to.
Long after I discovered Gabylon, after conducting a lot of research on the internet, I came across the great inventor Nikola Tesla. He had discovered a very similar diagram 100 years ago, but he called it a multiplication map, and his application to this diagram was more about mathematics, whereas my diagram was more about the periodic circle. The numbers in his diagram start inwards and spiral outwards, and the numbers in my diagram start outwards and spiral inwards. My diagram includes the 12 forces in nature and the 3 energies of growth, storage and change. However, Nikola Tesla didn't include these concepts within his circle because it was more about mathematics. I do wonder if Nikola Tesla held other information about this circle which he didn't show and just left the diagram very bare, as we see here in this old example.
When spiraling the atomic numbers around the Gabylon wheel, all the same groups that appear on the periodic table will also be present but in a triangular way. For instance, all the halogens and their atomic numbers belong to the blue triangle. After spiraling the atomic numbers around the circle, you'll find that all the halogens mathematically belong to the blue triangle that points north except one. This will be the same for the alkali metals, which belong to the fire trilogy that points south. The only odd one out here is rubidium-37. You'll also find this for the alkaline earth metals, which end up belonging to the green trilogy that points east, except one. And you'll also find that the red trilogy holds mathematically all the noble gases and their atomic numbers too, which points west, except one. In Gabylon, you're going to be able to understand and identify the attributes and traits of certain compounds more efficiently because it's a visual classification and not always a mathematical classification. Hafnium trichloride is soluble in water, and it's easy to see that in Gabylon because it belongs to the blue diamond. The others aren't. What I found was that elements that belong to just the one triangle were often very dangerous or destructive in some way. However, as we moved closer in the circle and the elements became more metallic, what I found was that if a compound belonged to such a group, it was interesting in some way, had a special quality, or very energizing in some way, like it might be a semiconductor, for instance.
Gabylon, you're going to learn about how the more triangles a compound belongs to, the higher chances it would have to connect life, support life, or enhance life in some way. And this was only identifiable after me translating many, many hundreds of compounds. Hemoglobin, which is blood and responsible for life, just so happens to belong to all four trilogies and has every single relationship except for one. The only relationship that blood didn't do was the ghost-ancestor combination. You're also going to learn about new alternative relationships within compounds, such as the sibling group, ghost or ancestor group, opposition group, cousin group, throne or parent. In Gabylon, you're going to learn about how to do molecular equations, and you're also going to learn about how you can use it with mainstream chemistry language. Here we have another double displacement reaction, which is more simplified because the reactivity group isn't present.
It's important to realise that Gabylon is actually not just a two-dimensional circle but a three-dimensional circle, and its concepts can be applied to planet Earth in regards to Earth systems.
In Gabylon, you're also going to see how we can apply its concepts to three-dimensional Earth, and you'll find that it resonates with science and what's currently known about Earth systems.
To find Gabylon, I had to act a bit as a pirate would and not believe in what anyone said and just keep it all to myself. But now I feel it is the right time to release it.
We've come to the end of my presentation. Thank you for watching.